So, here are the answers to the fake atheist point of view, which were not answered well by these Christians and even those that went to this apologetics class. A little bit of research. There are many differences between the various planets and moons, yet if they came up from the same gas, they should all be alike. There's a differences and points to a creator. The elements in the sun are very different than in the earth or other planets. Therefore, there isn't a uniform evolutionary point of view here. Maybe some creativity like God, a creator God. Saturn's rings cannot be more than 10,000 years old. Wow. In the Creation Evolution Encyclopedia, facts about Saturn. The rings of Saturn are mainly ammonia, yet it should vaporize away. How could those rings have been formed? Why do its 17 moons never collide with its rings? How could Phoebe, the farthest moon, not collide with the others? So Dr. Baugh says, when our space probes were sent to Saturn, the mission discovered a very unique thing in their observations. It was found that the rings of Saturn are actually intertwined. They appear to be braided. All the laws of physics show that after several tens of thousands of years, not millions, certainly not billions, this intertwining of the rings would have been lost, and the rings would have been amalgamized to the point where they were relatively uniform in composition. This means that someone designed them in their braided form just a few thousand years ago. So the rings of Saturn are mainly ammonia, yet it should vaporize away. How could these rings have been formed? Why do its 17 moons never collide with its rings? How could Phoebe, the farthest moon, not collide with the others? So let's go to Venus. Craters on Venus are virtually undisturbed, indicating a young planet. A recent TV program and recent revelations from NASA space exploration missions that led to that program have put evolutionists in a quandary. The virtually undisturbed meteor impact craters all over the planet discovered by space exploration satellites sent to Venus creates the impression that Venus has not been around for very long. If the planet were very old, millions, even billions of years, then one would expect that the supposed volcanic eruptions or other meteor impacts or shifting of the planet's surface or other surface events such as rising mountain ranges would have disturbed the virtually undisturbed craters at least somewhere on the planet. But such is not the case. But all the evolutionists interviewed on the TV show refused to acknowledge the possibility of a young Venus and posited such unfounded theories as certain inexplicable catastrophic events that smoothed the surface of the planet over in recent times so that the meteor impact craters themselves were recent all over the planet. The total lack of consideration that Venus is young was quite revealing. The sun is young. The sun is losing energy. It is losing a certain number of feet per hour in surface material. If you extrapolate back several tens of thousands of years, this means that the sun would have been appreciably larger, which means that the earth would have been scorched, thus eliminating the possibility of life evolving on the earth millions of years ago and necessitating an orchestrated short-term recent creation by a creator. It also means that the gravitational pull of the sun upon the earth would have caused the earth to catapult into the sun over a period of time. This, again, proves that you really don't have a lot of time to deal with. Dr. Duane Gish of the Institute for Creation Research maintained in a debate with Dr. Vincent Sarek at the Bakersfield, California Convention Center that a hypothetical primitive Earth, which would be evolving into today's Earth, would be open to the energy of the sun unhindered by the total absence of ozone. This would destroy every living thing, so much the less create anything new. This then refutes an Earth which evolved. Lubenow, in his book, a neutrino is an atomic particle so small that it can penetrate even the densest matter, a particle about as small as any in the universe. There are 3 types of neutrinos, but we will avoid technicalities. A neutrino is as close to nothing as something can be and still be something. Actually, the neutrino is not discovered, it was invented. It was invented in 1932 when atomic scientists needed a nothing particle to make their equations come out even, so they made it up. The discovery in 1955 of the real thing represents one of the brilliant epics of science, of which there are many. Later, Raymond Davis, University of Pennsylvania, developed a unique trap deep in the Homestake mine Deadwood, South Dakota, to detect neutrinos coming from the sun and test the theory of stellar evolution. The experiment has been going on now for more than 25 years at that time. This is even more than that. This results so far are a failure for the evolutionary theory of the sun and stars, and may be a support for recent creationism. Writing of the failure of the Davis experiment to confirm the theory of stellar evolution, Roger Ulrich, University of California, LA, confessed it with masterful understatement. The theory of stellar evolution is challenged in a very fundamental way. This discrepancy between the theory and observation raises the possibility that the theory is incorrect, so that our conclusions based on the theory can no longer be afforded complete confidence. One thing we think we know about the sun is that it shines by converting hydrogen to helium. Hence, the helium content of the sun is dependent upon how long the sun has been shining. If we were to build a creationist model of the sun, one of the first things we would build into our model would be a low helium content based on the belief that the sun has been shining only thousands of years rather than billions of years. Yet this would possibly help solve the problem. We would have a model which would conform to these observations. The creationist model predicts what the solar neutrino experiment suggests is the true situation. The cause of the massive error also becomes obvious. To impose a 5 billion year evolution model upon the sun that has been shining only thousands of years is to invite a massive error. So the fictitious model of the sun, only thousands of years old, actually reflects reality of what we've seen so far. Of all the attempts over a 30-year period to resolve the solar neutrino crisis, the one possibility not even remotely considered by evolutionists is a recent age for the sun. The evolutionist age for the sun and the universe represents its holy of holies. No trespassing is allowed, and that's why the implications of the solar neutrino crisis are treated with such a holy silence. The shrinking sun. How old is the sun anyway? Keith Davies, Institute for Creation Research. Keith Davies, principal of Scarborough Christian Schools, receives mail at 55 Brimwood Boulevard, Ontario, Canada. Maybe not. Maybe he moved since then. According to current models of stellar evolution, take a look at this picture here. When a star like our sun is very young, its enormous output of energy is provided by gravitational contraction. As it grows older, the models show that the source of its energy should change over to that of nuclear fusion as it slowly develops a very hot and dense core. Where exactly does the sun fit into this sequence? Well, the standard model of the sun assumes that it is around 5 billion years old and that it has already passed into its nuclear burning stage. That makes it all the more extraordinary that in 1976, a team of Russian astronomers writing in the respected British scientific journal Nature showed how their research pointed clearly to the startling fact that the sun does not even seem to possess a large, dense nuclear burning core. Instead, the results showed the sun as bearing the characteristics of a very young, homogeneous star that corresponds with the early stages of the computer models. The astronomers also proposed that nuclear reactions are not responsible for energy generation in the sun. They said that such a conclusion, although rather extravagant, follows from their own research into the analysis of the global oscillations of the sun and is quite consistent with two other major observational findings. They cited these other evidences as being the observed absence of appreciable neutrino flux from the sun and the observed abundance of lithium and beryllium in the stellar atmosphere. So not only did the team of astronomers propose the startling idea that nuclear reactions are not responsible for the source of the sun's energy, but they also put forward the equally startling concept that the sun, according to their data, could be homogeneous throughout. Both of these revolutionary ideas would fit in perfectly with the concept that the sun is a very young star. All three of these major discoveries that point towards a young sun have since been confirmed by independent observations. This article will evaluate and update these findings and point the way to recent discoveries that show that the sun cannot possibly be the old nuclear burning main sequence star that it once was assumed to be. So, the first evidence for a young sun. The fundamental oscillation of the sun matches the model for a young star. Over here, no core, creation, young sun. Here's when an older sun has a core in it, nuclear core, two models, young and old. In the same way that seismology gives us information of the structure of the Earth, so does the relatively new discipline of helioseismology provide important information on the structure of the Sun. If the Sun is an old star, then according to the standard model, it should have a large core reaching out to a distance of around 175,000 kilometers from its center and having a density of about 14 times that of lead. A core of such a size and mass would of course have substantial effect on any global oscillations of the Sun. In particular, the presence of such a large core would mean that the Sun's global oscillations would range up to a maximum fundamental radio mode of oscillation of around 1 hour. Oscillations greater than 1 hour would involve such enormous amounts of energy that they would result in the complete disruption of any large core that might be present in the Sun. If, however, the Sun is similar to a very large homogeneous star that has not yet developed a large central core, then its spectrum of global oscillations have been calculated as including a much larger fundamental radio oscillation of 2 hours and 47 minutes, together with a non-radio fundamental oscillation of 59 minutes, and either a second harmonic radio oscillation of 47 minutes or a 42-minute non-radio second oscillation that's harmonic. Well, what was the predicted oscillation of 2 hours 47 minutes is particularly important as being a key distinguishing feature of a young homogeneous star. And the Russian astronomers were certainly startled to find that their observations of the star were showing large and remarkably stable global oscillations with a period of 2 hours 40 minutes and very close to that predicted for a young homogeneous star. There you go. And we've been corroborating this ever since. When trying to explain this quite unexpected observation, they stated in their article that a most striking fact is that the observed period of 2 hours 40 minutes is almost precisely the same as if the Sun were to be in a homogeneous sphere. The concept of the Sun's being in a homogeneous sphere was so contrary to all previous ideas that the Russians were anxious to find alternative explanations. They kept on returning, however, to the conclusion that their work, which involved the observation of systematic fluctuations in very large portions of the Sun's surface, comparable in size with the radius of the Sun's disk, points definitely to pulsations of the Sun as a whole. So, the Brits decided to confirm this. A British group soon confirmed the 2 hour 40 minute oscillation. They also discovered further oscillations that included a 58-minute oscillation and a 40-minute oscillation, and these three values are almost precisely those predicted for a homogeneous star of the same size and mass as the Sun. When they published the results, they stated that current solar models predict a period of about 1 hour corresponding to a steep density increase in the solar interior, in marked contrast to the observed 2.65 hour period, which is consistent with a nearly homogeneous model of the Sun. We have comments from other astronomers. The unexpected observations have gone solidly against the predictions of the standard model of the Sun. The solar astronomers Lane Nicholson said of the long period oscillation that it was a true fundamental period, then the standard model could not be correct, and that the central temperature of the Sun would be less than half the conventional value. Such a low temperature would, of course, again fit in with the Sun being a young star that has been not yet achieved a sufficiently high temperature for maintaining main sequence hydrogen burning. So the British astronomers Christian Dalsgaard and D.O. Goff commented that in order to account for the 2 hour 40 minute observation, it is evident that a very drastic change in the solar model would be necessary, and it is unlikely that any such model can be found. This striking discovery, the Sun's oscillation, was not, however, the only evidence of a young Sun. The second evidence of a young Sun, solar neutrino emission of a young star. The Russian team stated that the low neutrino flux of the Sun also fits in with their proposal that the energy of the Sun did not come from nuclear resources. So the low neutrino flux is a well-known and long-standing problem for modern astronomy, especially the evolutionists. A group of solar physicists writing in the National Research Council publication Decade of Discovery stated that the neutrino emission from the Sun is a problem that has worried astronomers for years, and that the discrepancy is serious, to their theological point of view, I guess. A low neutrino flux, which results in a correspondingly low temperature of the Sun's core, again fits in perfectly with the Sun being a young star. that has not yet achieved the full nuclear burning of the hydrogen, but is obtaining its energy from a slow gravitational contraction.